Chapter 32-35. Then we shall not disturb you, madam. Tang Guo reminded her. Madam, my two sisters are pregnant, you have to take good care of them. At this point, Tang Guo took a few steps closer to Madam Dowager. If you feel that you can't protect them, you can ask for help. For example, you can ask the Emperor for help. It might be useful. Get lost, I don't want you to interfere with my affairs. You just want to make my family feel uneasy. Ever since you married into the family, not many good things have happened. Tang Guo was not angry at all. She only said, before I came to your family, not many good things happened in your family. Madam Dowager, you have to consider your conscience before you speak, lest you tire your tongue. Madam Dowager wants to rest. Sisters, follow me back. Yes, madam. Qiu Yu and the other concubines hurriedly bowed. Madam Dowager, we'll take our leave first. Madam Dowager looked at Qiu Yu and the rest who followed behind Tang Guo obediently. She had an indescribable feeling. She was the one who found these concubines to keep Tang away. Why were they so obedient? What kind of magic potion did Tang feed them? Madam Dowager, will Madam Dowager be all right? Qiu Yu was a little worried. If Madam Dowager really died of anger, wouldn't the world blame Madam Dowager? By then, no one would be able to control the Crown Prince. She was afraid that he would punish all of them. A few months ago, when the Crown Prince wanted to kill the two women without hesitation, they had already lost hope in him. They used to be satisfied that he was a sentimental person, but it turned out that he had such a side to him. It might be a blessing to be liked by him. If he didn't like her, it would be a tragedy. No, Madam Dowager is in good health. Even if she was not in good health, she had to make sure that Madam Dowager was well. She had to at least live until the age in the plot. Otherwise, she would feel sorry for staying in the mansion for so long. The Madam Dowager in the plot had such a personality. Even if Do Changye was not her grandson, he was still her grandson. Just like now, although Madam Dowager was angry with Do Changye, she would still forgive him if he gave in. She was closer to him than outsiders. In the plot, Madam Dowager had been targeting Lu Junhua for a long time. However, he still doted on Lu Junhua's child. Especially in the plot, there was only Lu Junhua's child. Later on, Do Changye plotted a rebellion and succeeded. Hence, old Madame Gu's attitude softened. Also, Do Changye wanted to send the original owner of the body to the temple because of Lu Junhua, and old Madame didn't stop him. She thought that the original owner was a dispensable person, so if she was locked up, then so be it. Later on, the situation was settled. With Lu Junhua's child in the middle, old Madame's attitude completely softened. She and Lu Junhua buried the hatchet. The family was very good. As for the original owner, who was thrown into the mountain temple to cultivate, she subconsciously ignored her. Lu Junhua did not acknowledge the fact that she and Do Changye were already husband and wife since the original owner was his second wife. When the old madam heard that the original owner had died, she was especially happy. It was as if there was one less obstacle in her way. She hurriedly arranged for the two to get married. In fact, Tang Guo even suspected that Do Changye might have been behind the fire and the bandits. After all, it was because of the existence of the original owner that Lu Junhua was unwilling to truly marry him. Vertex. Chapter 32-36. Now, things were going to get interesting. It was impossible for Do Changye to succeed in his rebellion. It was ridiculous that he wanted to poison Shangguan Yungu. With Shangguan Yungu's current strength, how could he be poisoned by ordinary poisons? It was also impossible for Lu Junhua to make the little emperor lose his mind. According to Shangguan Yungu, the little emperor often went to look for Lu Junhua, but not because he liked her. When he was sure that there was no danger, he would go to Lu Junhua's side to test the mysterious power. Sometimes, he would try to resist the pull of the power. Sometimes, he would be led by the power to see what stupid things he would do. Tang Guo also didn't expect that the little emperor would be so fun to play with. He actually fought against this mysterious power. The little emperor was smart. When he knew that Tang Guo was not simple, he knew that his uncle Shangguan Yungu might have changed. Although he did not ask directly, he became more diligent. Not only did he become more diligent, but he also learned how to divide the harem. In the morning, Tang Guo heard Shangguan Yungu complaining in the group. He said that the little emperor had been distressed recently. Why was there still no news from his concubines' bellies? He had worked so hard, but why hadn't a prince been born yet? Tang Guo laughed hysterically at that time, but she guessed that the little emperor might have realized something and wanted to groom a prince to take over the throne and follow Shangguan Yungu. If that was the case, the little emperor who was not influenced by the plot was really a talent. Actually, there were plenty of people in capital city who were more outstanding than Do Changye without Mr. Plot's influence. You don't have to worry so much. Go back and play your tricks. I refuted old madam today. She won't let you persuade the crown prince again. Yes, madam. Seeing that Tang Guo did not care, Chiu Yu and the rest felt relieved. But when they thought that the cold and cruel crown prince was their husband, they still felt a little hopeless. If they could stay in the harem peacefully, it would be fine. But they were afraid that they would not be able to defend themselves if something happened one day. The only thing they could rely on now was Madame. Chiu Yu and the rest were thinking that if Madame was a man, being her concubine would be more carefree than being the legal wife. The few of them who were thinking nonsense quickly ran back to play their tricks. System, host, don't be too nice to them, in case they think too much. Look, with just a few words, these concubines are blushing again. If you were a man, they might not be able to control themselves. Give them a good family in the future, so that they won't have time to think too much. Tang Guo said with a smile, Do Changye should find out about Lu Junhua's existence in less than 2 days. Before Tang Guo could wait for Lu Junhua to be discovered by Do Changye, Mei Shangji was stopped by Shangguan Yungu. Shangguan Yungu thought about it left and right, but still felt that something was wrong with Mei Shangji. Saint King Duan, why are you looking for me? Based on seniority, Mei Shangji was of the same generation as Shangguan Yungu, so he was not afraid of the other party. Moreover, he was the #1 playboy in the capital. Even the emperor was his junior. Who would he be afraid of? You always tell me why I have to look for the crown prince's wife for no reason. Shangguan Yungu asked seriously. Chapter 32-37. Don't think that I didn't notice that you're going to the jade shop every few days. Kid, I'm telling you, you better not have any bad ideas. Otherwise, I won't be able to save you. Shangguan Yungu said worriedly. This kid had offended everyone in the capital and he didn't think much of it. Furthermore, ever since he was young, although this kid was a little scoundrel and a little hedonistic, the only thing that they could tolerate was that he didn't bully the commoners and didn't provoke the innocent. Although he was a little arrogant, the people he bullied were people that they didn't think it was a big deal. But now, this kid actually went to the jade shop every few days. It was said that he only looked but didn't buy. He left empty-handed and returned empty-handed. From the original 7 days, he went once every 3 days. He stayed for an entire afternoon and looked at all the jade in the shop. But he didn't buy. It was said that he not only looked but also commented. After commenting, he still didn't buy. This angered him to death. Did this kid know who the shop belonged to? It was his martial uncle's. If he offended his martial uncle, this kid wouldn't be saved. There wouldn't even be time to save him. He heard from his master that his senior brother was his martial uncle's trouble. He even wanted his martial uncle's life. In the end, his senior brother was extremely miserably played by his martial uncle. It couldn't be worse. According to his master, his senior brother had gone crazy. Directly killing him was still considered straightforward. Playing with him until he went crazy was really scary. When Mei Shangji heard this, he knew that Shangguan Yungu misunderstood that he was going to do something bad. He really didn't do anything bad. He was just going to see the fairy of his dreams. A day without seeing her was like 3 autumns. 3 days without seeing her was like 9 autumns. These torturous days were really too hard for him to wait. In a short period of time, he had looked at all the jade in the shop. The style of the jade, how it was made, what its meaning was, he could memorize it all. He just didn't know when his little fairy would leave the Marquis's estate and fly to his house. Other than the days when he went to the shop, he had been working very hard recently to get more offerings. In the future, when the fairy came to his house, there wouldn't be no food. I'm just going to take a look. I don't have any other intentions. Sage King Duan, don't worry. I don't plan to cause trouble. Mei Shangji explained simply. He wouldn't tell the other party that he was waiting for the fairy to fly to his house. Shangguan Yungu didn't know what to say. In the end, he warned in a small voice, "Kid, no matter what you do, this is the wife's shop. Don't cause trouble. You said you haven't caused any trouble yet, but now everyone knows that you go there every 3 days. Many people don't dare to buy things there anymore. As long as you're there, who would dare to go? If you go there, you're still causing trouble." Although Shangguan Yungu TSS knows TT. If he really got annoyed, what if Uncle Master took issue with it? It was better to restrain this brat so that he wouldn't disturb Martial Uncle. He just wanted to stay in the shop for a while longer. Even if they didn't talk, as long as she sat in the shop and looked at the account books, he would stand far away and be in the same place as her. He felt that the days passed by as fast as a wild horse out of control. He didn't expect that if he stayed for the whole afternoon, no one would come into the shop. Chapter 32-38. He was wondering why no one went in to disturb him whenever he was around. However, Little Fairy did not chase him away. His father's analysis should be right. Little Fairy was actually here to meet him, but she might have flown to the wrong house because she had no sense of direction. Fortunately, Do Changye was not a good person. Little Fairy would definitely come to his house after she was done. Since Little Fairy did not chase him away, it meant that she agreed to his existence. Mei Shangji felt a little happy at the thought. However, even if Little Fairy favored him so much, he could not be fearless. He had to do something to make Little Fairy happy. "You brat, are you listening?" "Yes, I'm listening." Mei Shangji hurriedly nodded and promised seriously, "Don't worry, I'll be careful. I won't cause any trouble in the future." From now on, he wanted to be a gentle and refined playboy in the capital city. Even if he bullied others, he could not bare his fangs and brandish his claws. He had to be reasonable. When he bullied others, they could only hold it in. He had to maintain a good image at all times so that he would not disappoint Little Fairy. Anyway, don't cause any trouble in the future. Shangguan Yungu warned again. I know. I won't cause any trouble. King Duan, don't worry." Shangguan Yungu snorted coldly, "Don't blame me for being long-winded. I'm still your brother. This time, I'm advising you for your own good." Yes, brother. I'm listening. Mei Shangji nodded. Qing Chuan was right. Shangguan Yungu was too long-winded when he lectured others. Qing Chuan also said that when he was lectured, he just had to obediently agree. Otherwise, it might be another long speech that would make one dizzy. Shangguan Yungu finally felt a bit more at ease and left. This day, Tang Guif came to the shop again. Because Mei Shangji was too persistent, she decided to come to the shop once every 3 days. She knew that Mei Shangji had sent someone to watch over the marquis residence. Once she went out, he would definitely know. As expected, not long after she arrived, Mei Shangji came in. Recently, Mei Shangji walked more normally. He would not walk with his feet splayed out and look lazy and disdainful. Basically, as soon as he entered the store, his eyes would light up and a lazy and disdainful smile would appear on his face. Basically, this smile would not appear in front of Tang Guo. In front of Tang Guo, she was like an obedient child. Your Highness's wife, you're here too. Mei Shangji's eyes lit up again. He reached into his bosom and pulled out a stack of banknotes. I originally wanted to walk around here, but I didn't expect you to be here as well. I just happened to have some money with me. It's not a lot, so I'll pay you back as much as I can. Now, Mei Shangji was very regretful. Why didn't Tang Guo sell him that jade pillow at a high price of 5 million, or even 10 million? That way, he would be able to repay the debt for decades at a time. Wouldn't that be great? Well, there's no hurry. Take your time. Tang Guo still said the same thing. When Mei Shangji heard this, his heart felt warm. This should be little fairy's preference for him. Hee hee. So how could he let her shop's business be bad? Tang Guo indeed felt that Mei Shangji was acting a little strange today. After a while, many people came into the shop, and they were all here to look at jade. Not only did they look, but they also bought it after a while. The jade wares that were bought were all of good quality. She observed that most of these people did not understand jade. Peak. Chapter 32-39. Basically, they asked for the price and bought the most expensive one. They acted as if they were rich and overbearing. If they were in other shops, they would be treated as fat lambs to be slaughtered. Mei Shangji peeked at Tang Guo from time to time. Hee hee, what was his little fairies anyway? Wasn't it just a matter of the left hand giving to the right hand? Tang Guo understood that these people were all found by Mei Shangji. Host, this kid really knows how to please people. I don't know who he learned it from. Someone must have reminded him. He didn't know about this before. That day, Mei Shangji stayed for the entire afternoon. Until evening, there was an endless stream of people coming into the jade shop to buy jade wares. Although Mei Shangji basically didn't talk to Tang Guo, he stood at the side and looked at the shopkeeper's sore hands. He was overjoyed. If his little fairy came to the shop every day, he would arrange for people to buy jade wares every day. Anyway, if he bought it back, it would be at home. It would still belong to his little fairy in the future. It would all be hers. If he also belonged to her, that would be even better. Tang Guo bid farewell to Mei Shangji. Mei Shangji smiled and nodded. Not long after Tang Guo left, he also left. It was rare that he didn't ride by the marquis's estate today. Instead, he went to an alley. Soon, many people came to his side. Young master, the jade wares are all here. Young master, I used the money you gave me to buy these jade wares. Mei Shangji patted his confidant with satisfaction. Good job. Your acting skills are not bad. Reward them all. Thank you, young master. Let's go. Disperse. Let's go back. At night, Tang Guo just lay down and looked at the group chat. Then, she saw Shangguan Yungu appear. Shangguan Yungu, school bell, did that Mei Shangji go to your shop again today? He didn't cause you any trouble, right? When he heard this news, Shangguan Yungu was about to die from anger. Didn't he agree to it before? In the end, he turned around and didn't listen. It really was that kid's style. School beauty, he did come, but he didn't cause any trouble. Shangguan Yungu, I've already warned him not to come over and cause trouble for Martial Uncle. In the end, this brat refused to listen. Campus bell, it's okay. It's not troublesome. It won't disturb me. Looking at Tanggua's text, Shangguan Yungu felt that something was wrong, but he didn't feel anything wrong. After all, Mei Shangji didn't seem to have done anything. Martial Uncle probably wouldn't fuss over such a small matter. Shangguan Yungu, anyway, if that kid has caused any trouble, please forgive me, Martial Uncle. I'll talk to him later. Actually, this kid was a bit of a silk pants, but his heart was not returned. If he had a bad heart, the General King would have broken his leg long ago. Campus bell, since he's not a bad person, there's no need to fuss over such a small matter. Maybe it's because the jade wares in my shop are too beautiful and he doesn't have the money to buy them, so he couldn't help but come over to take a look to satisfy his eyes. Shangguan Yungu, that's possible. After all, the Lord General's residence is not as wealthy as the other clans. I heard that he bought a jade pillow here last time. The General King liked it very much. It said that he spent a lot of money. System, not only did he spend a little money, he still owes a lot. During this time, the others in the group didn't say anything. It wasn't until Tang Guo left the group that Zi Yun and the others popped out. Peak. Chapter 3240. Ziyun, Younggu, what's the name of the boy you mentioned just now? What did he do to make you think she'll be angry? Mo Yuntian, yeah, what did he do? Shangguan Younggu told them the whole story and there was a short silence in the group. Mo Yuntian, it's really not a big deal. She doesn't mind. You don't have to bother about it. Ziyun, yeah, she said not to bother about it. You really shouldn't meddle in other people's business. Maybe it's really because her jade wares are too good and he can't afford to buy them, so he just wants to look at them. Margaret, I'm warning you seriously, you'd better not bother about it. Since the campus belle doesn't hate it, you don't have to do anything else. Emmanuel, yeah, don't bother about it. You can't do anything about it. Piao Miao, you'd better treat that boy well. Shangguan Younggu, why? Inhuan, just listen to everyone. Don't bother about it. Mo Yuntian, we won't say anything else. You'll know in the future. Mo Yuntian's mysterious words made Shangguan Younggu guess. When he guessed this, he really didn't bother about it. He guessed that his uncle master had taken a fancy to Mei Shangji's talent and wanted to take him in as a disciple, just like how he took Mo Yuntian as his master. She was giving Mei Shangji a test now. No, she was still observing his character. Maybe it was because such things had happened in the past and everyone was not curious about it at all. After thinking it through, Shangguan Younggu couldn't help but say, this boy is really lucky to have caught Uncle Master's eye. System, although it's the same, there's still a big difference. Old Madam didn't get into Tanggua's trouble and she knew that it was impossible to take advantage of Tanggua. She had been acting mysteriously recently, probably to protect the two pregnant concubines. As for Tanggua's suggestion to report this matter to the Emperor, she wouldn't do that at all. That would mean that she only wanted her great-grandson and gave up on her grandson, Do Changye. In old Madam's opinion, even if her grandson disappointed her now, he would understand one day. If this matter really reached the Emperor, her house of Marquis would lose all face. Tanggua had no interest in helping old Madam do anything. Every day, she played with the concubines. Her life was carefree and free. Then, Lychee came back in a panic. She walked to her side and whispered, "Miss, something bad has happened." "What is it?" Tang Guo knew that Do Changye must have met Lu Junhua and wanted to bring her back. However, he was stopped by Lu Junhua's bodyguards. Do Changye was infuriated. He came back with his men and wanted to force his way into the house. Indeed, although Do Changye liked Lu Junhua a lot, he was also a very autocratic person. Seeing that the person he liked was actually unwilling to return to him, he had to snatch her back. Even though Lu Junhua had already lost her memory, Do Changye, who was close to being sealed as a demon, could not think of anything else now. All he wanted to do was to bring her back. The young master brought a lot of people out in a hurry. Right now, the people outside are all talking about how the young master brought so many people out in order to snatch a woman. According to the latest news, both parties have already started fighting. The reason why the young emperor sent so many people to protect Lu Junhua was that he felt that this woman had a strange power. She was not simple. He could not kill her for no reason. He was also curious about that power and often went to play with it. Also, his royal uncle and the young master's wife seemed to know something. Therefore, the people sent were all experts in the palace. How could Do Changye, who was the young master's subordinate, be compared to the experts in the palace? Before he managed to snatch her back, the young emperor received the news. The first person to receive the news was actually Shangguan Yungu. Since Tang Guo had told him not to interfere, he did not do anything. "Young master's wife, old madam would like to see you." After hearing Li Qi's words, Chunhua's voice could be heard from outside. Old madam must have known about this and invited her to discuss it. Peak. Chapter 32-41. Since you're here, follow me out and persuade him to come back. When old madam heard that Do Changye had gotten into a fight with someone just to snatch a woman away, she got a great shock and had an ominous feeling. Later on, she sent her confidant to check on the woman, only to realize that she looked exactly like Lu Junhua. It was said that there was a child beside the woman, which made old madam feel a little relieved. She was probably a woman who looked similar to Lu Junhua, and Do Changye had gone crazy after seeing her. If he really cared about Lu Junhua that much, he wouldn't have found a substitute, let alone one who had a child with her. Tang Guo did not refute this time and instead agreed obediently, making old madam heave a sigh of relief. Little did he know that Tang Guo only wanted to watch the show and had no intention of persuading Do Changye. She would be happy if Do Changye were to blow things up. The group of people rushed to the outside of a mansion, where they had already gotten into a conflict. She saw that Do Changye's robe was covered in dust and the people he had brought were all wailing on the ground. She knew that the conflict had ended with Do Changye's defeat. "Junhua, do you really not remember me?" Since he could not snatch the woman he loved back by force, Do Changye could only try to awaken Lu Junhua's lost memories. However, his ferocious look had already frightened Lu Junhua and it was impossible for her to remember who he was. She only felt that he was extremely rude. He called her Junhua and questioned her why she had a child and how she could be with another man. He wanted to get someone to snatch her away from him. Now that he could not beat her, he was trying to deceive her with words. Hence, she only detested Do Changye and did not have a good impression of him at all. "I've said it many times, I don't know you. I'm not the person you know. You must have mistaken me for someone else." "No, I'm not mistaken. You're Junhua, you're Lu Junhua. Junhua, have you forgotten about the happy days we had? Have you forgotten my oath? Why don't you listen to me? I really don't know you and I'm not Lu Junhua either. Sir, please leave now." According to the original plot, Do Changye would not have been so rough with Lu Junhua when he first met her. That was because in the original plot, the original host didn't have Tang Guo. Now she was doing well in the Hofu. Madame Dowager couldn't do anything to her and hence, found many concubines to keep her at bay. She tried to make Do Changye pamper her, but they all failed. In the end, old Madame was infuriated. Hence, she heeded the advice of her nanny and bought 2 women to get together with Do Changye. Not only did they get together, but they also got pregnant in one go. Of course, this pregnancy was not a coincidence. It was inevitable. The 2 girls knew their fate. Rather than being bought and sold, they might as well settle down in the Marquis's estate. She had taken a secret medicine beforehand, which made it easy for her to get pregnant. However, most people wouldn't know about these secrets. Do Changye was infuriated that old Madame Dowager had tried her best to protect his 2 concubines who were pregnant. It could be said that he had lost his mind. Now that he saw Lu Junhua, he naturally wouldn't be like the original plot, where he would patiently get to know her again and have a good impression of her. Vertex. Chapter 32-42. He desperately wanted to bring Lu Junhua back to the mansion so that old Madame Dowager and Tang Guo would give up completely. He wanted them to understand that Lu Junhua was his only love. However, the current emperor was no longer infatuated with Lu Junhua. Out of curiosity, he even sent the top experts to protect her. Do Changye was at a disadvantage right from the start. You guys go and bring His Highness back to the mansion. Old Madame Dowager did not want to go against Do Changye when they were outside. Hence, she knew that she had sent Tang Guo and the rest. Tang Guo rolled her eyes at old Madame Dowager and shook her head. No. You. Look at the situation now. Do you really want His Highness to stay here and make a scene and embarrass himself? In a while, all the people in the capital city will be here to laugh at you. Let's see how embarrassed you are then. Tang Guo almost burst out laughing. Where was she supposed to put her face? She didn't seem to be embarrassed in front of the people in the capital city. Lychee said softly, Miss, the people in the capital city all say that you're thick-skinned and they don't laugh at you anymore. Lychee seemed to have seen through Tang Guo's thoughts. Her personality was slowly changing, so she muttered. She spoke very softly and Tang Guo was the only one who could hear her. If you don't want to embarrass yourself, hurry and go. After marrying you, you're finally useful. Right now, Shizi's mind is muddled. As Shizi's wife, your responsibility is to make Shizi sober up and return to the manor with you. Old Madam said, and you, as Shizi's concubines, should also go and persuade Shizi. We don't know what His Highness has gotten himself into now that he's muddle-headed. You must persuade him to go back as soon as possible. You're all His Highness's subordinates. He'll listen to you and come to his senses soon. Old Madame Dowager's words made Do Changye seem like he was acting up. Even if they did not believe it, they had to say that Do Changye was acting up and that he was not really there to snatch Lin Mingyao away. No, His Highness is obviously in a fit of anger. He might slap me and I won't be able to take it. Tang Guo shook her head resolutely. She warned Qiu Yu and the others, stay away from the crown prince. With your small bodies, he can kill you with one slap. Tang Guo seriously told the concubines to stay away. If it weren't for the occasion, it would be easy to burst out laughing. As for Qiu Yu and the other concubines, they were touched. Sure enough, no matter when, only Madame was truly good to them. At a time like this, even if it meant disobeying, he had to protect them. She should not have been neglected by Do Changye in a place like the Marquis' mansion. System, dear host, look at Qiu Yu and the others. Their eyes are brimming with tears. If it wasn't for the fact that this isn't the right place, they would be crying in front of you. TSK, TSK, TSK. Host, you're such a scumbag. You've stolen the hearts of these young ladies again. Doesn't your conscience hurt at all? Tongzi, are you out of your mind? Why are you always thinking about all sorts of messy things? Tanggua, are you really trying to drive me to my grave? Although old Madame Dowager was very angry, she kept her voice low. Clearly, they were outside and she did not want to make things too ugly. Others might be shameless, but she was. She did not want the entire capital city to laugh at the fact that the crown prince of the Marquis' mansion abducted a woman in public. Tanggua, you can do whatever you want in the mansion, but now that we're outside, you'd better know your place. If you don't persuade the crown prince to go home today, you won't be able to raise your head in capital city in the future. Peak. Chapter 32-43. Tanggua snorted, making Madame Dowager so infuriated that she almost fainted. Madame Dowager was infuriated to see how nonchalant she was. If not for Do Changya's insubordination, she would have long gotten him to divorce Tanggua. Tang, just take it that you're doing me a favor. At most, I won't make things difficult for you in the future. Madame Dowager finally compromised. Do you see that woman standing at the entrance of the mansion? Madame Dowager said softly, although I don't know if that woman is Lu Junhua, she looks exactly like her. If you don't persuade the heir to return today, don't blame me for not reminding you that you won't have a good life if he really brings that woman into the mansion. Tanggua was still nonchalant. It's just a small matter. At most, we'll divorce. No, just divorce him. My husband is so indecent. It's better if you divorce him. You, Chiu Yu and the rest lowered their heads and ignored her completely. They were really envious of Madame Dowager's fearlessness. However, they also knew that they would never be able to do that if they were in Madame Dowager's shoes. They were not even free, how could they not be fearful? To be able to have a mouthful of rice to eat and prolong his life was already very impressive. Most women in this world were just like them. They did not know what dignity was and had never experienced it before. No, they had already experienced it. All their dignity was picked up by Madame Dowager. Madame Dowager was the one who protected them and allowed them to eat well, dress well, and not be humiliated. If not for Madame Dowager, the few of them would probably not have a good ending, except for Qin Xinyun. Madame Dowager had kept their indentures and it was up to her to decide what to do with them. Tang, what do you have to do to persuade the heir to return? Madame Dowager did not go because she knew that she could not persuade him to return and might even be ridiculed by Do Changye. She had experienced such things many times. Now that she had fallen out with Do Changye, she was just afraid that Do Changye would vent his anger on the two concubines who were pregnant with his children because of her behavior. Tanggua was obviously very smart. After such a long time, she had already understood that Tanggua was not that simple. Perhaps she really had a way to persuade Do Changye to return. Now that she saw the woman who looked exactly like Lu Junhua, she felt uncomfortable. If it weren't for that jinx, would her grandson be like this? Now, he was muddle-headed and even dared to snatch someone in broad daylight. If word got out, it would be a huge joke. Old madam, it's not impossible for me to persuade the crown prince to return home, but you have to give me something. When the old lady heard that Tanggua wanted something, she was obviously relieved. Tell me, what do you want? As long as I can give it to you, I will. However, your request had better not be too excessive. Otherwise, I won't agree to it. Compromising in front of Tanggua wasn't something that happened once or twice. One more time wouldn't matter. The most important thing now was to persuade Do Changye to go back. Mrs. Tang, are you really confident that you can persuade the heir to return? Old madam asked worriedly. Tanggua nodded, as long as you agree to my conditions, not to mention one Shitzi, even if there are 10 of them, I can invite them back. Old Madam Xing was a little doubtful. Was this Tang family really that capable? Speak, what do you want? Vertex. Chapter 32-44. No matter what, she could only depend on Tang Enterprise now. Most importantly, she couldn't force Do Changye to go back, so she could only hope for Tang Enterprise. Perhaps this shrew really had a way. Tang Guo lowered her voice and said, I feel that Qiu Yu, Zhang Yuanxiang, and Li Dongger are very obedient. They serve me well, but they are not on my side. I'm afraid that if I spend too much time with them, they will have a change of heart and betray me, or even poison me. So, old madam, please give me their contracts. This way, I won't be afraid of them secretly poisoning me. Although she lowered her voice, Qiu Yu and the others still heard her. Had they served old madam before? Probably not. At most, they would accompany old madam to do some embroidery, but that didn't count as serving her. Moreover, the money they spent on embroidery was given by old madam. Old madam would even reward them at the end of the month. Old madam had said that their embroidery skills were not bad, and she happened to own a shop under her name that sold these items that girls liked. She told them to embroider more embroidery and sell it in the shop, and then split the money with them. Hence, after being in the residence for so long, their wallets were really full. Was old madam really afraid that they would poison her? That was more like a lie. Qiu Yu and the others thought of a possibility and their eyes welled up. They couldn't help but burst into tears. However, Qiu Yu was smart. She was afraid that old madam would be willing to give old madam the contract after knowing the truth. She was the one who ruined things, so she didn't want to implicate old madam. Hence, Qiu Yu burst into tears and said, Old madam, I really didn't mean to harm you. As she spoke, she even pinched Zhang Yuanxiang. Zhang Yuanxiang reacted and looked at old madam with tears in her eyes. I'm also loyal to old madam. Zhang Yuanxiang also pinched Li Dongger. Li Dongger wiped her tears with a handkerchief and said, I really serve old madam wholeheartedly. I won't be disloyal. In this world, there was probably no one who could make her disloyal. No one who treated her better than old madam would ever appear again. Tanghua. Did they not get the chance to perform normally, so they decided to show off their acting skills to satisfy their cravings? System, host really looks like a big scumbag. Ah. Why was she acting? Why was she crying? Didn't she know? Seeing these concubines trembling, old madam's heart finally felt a little better. So, it turned out, their lives weren't that great after all. This Tang Shi was a shrew. If she treated her like this, then she probably wouldn't treat the other concubines well. She was usually well-behaved and obedient, but she had no choice but to be obedient most of the time when she was beaten up badly in the house. Madame Dowager showed some sympathy in her eyes, but still agreed to Tanghua's condition. All right, I promise to give you their indenture contracts. Tang Shi, shouldn't you help me persuade the crown prince to go back now? The reason why they did not kick up a fuss was because Do Changye was talking to Lu Junhua. The conversation basically meant that if Do Changye said that she was his Junhua, then she would be his Junhua. Lu Junhua then said, I'm not your Junhua. My name isn't Lu Junhua at all. You've got the wrong person. Don't be unreasonable. If that's the case, old madam, please put your fingerprint on it. After managing the shop for so long, I still think that black and white documents are the most useful. Vertex. Chapter 32-45. Tanghua immediately took out a written certificate, causing old madam to lose her balance. This Tanghua was too good at scheming. She had never seen such a scheming person before. She wondered if she should be thankful that Do Changye was not infatuated with someone like Madame Tang. Otherwise, the Marquis's residence would fall into his hands. Old Madam had no choice but to press her fingerprint. She looked sullen and said in an unpleasant tone, "Everything is as you wish. Hurry and persuade the heir to go back. When the sun rises a little more, most of the people will be up." Initially, she did want to go back on her words. She had promised to give it to Tangua, but she did not mention when she would give it to her. She would give it to Tangua when she went back, in the future and before she died. However, Tangua was too shrewd and she could not plot against her at all. "Old Madam, since you're so straightforward, I'll do a good job for you." Tangua agreed with a smile. Old Madam finally felt relieved. She hoped that Tangua could come up with a solution. "Madam, be careful." Chiao Yu reminded her softly, "If the heir gets angry, you have to avoid him." Tangua nodded with a smile. She could cripple Do Changye with one finger. Tangua had already walked towards Do Changye, who was still talking to Lu Junhua. Since he could not beat Lu Junhua, he could only try to talk about the past so that Lu Junhua would remember something. However, Lu Junhua was still wary of Do Changye. She wished that Lu Junhua would leave, not to mention remembering something. She knew about the matters in the Duke's mansion. Especially the wife of the heir, who was a famous person in the capital city. However, she had a bad reputation. She also knew that Do Changye had once married a memorial tablet, probably because she looked like the person he liked. At the thought of this, Lu Junhua did not hate Do Changye anymore. She felt that he was a pitiful person when she saw how infatuated he was. Hence, when Tangua walked over, Lu Junhua was trying to persuade him. "Sir, you must have gotten the wrong person. Although I look like the person you like, I'm really not her. Pardon me for saying this, but I have a child. How can I be the person in your heart?" Do Changye's attention was caught at the mention of the child. He glared at the child coldly, as if he was going to devour the child. Lu Junhua got a great shock. She hurriedly hugged the child, no longer wishing to talk to Do Changye. Her eyes kept looking outside. Just now, a clever servant had gone to report to Shengwan Qingchuan. Of course, the person she was looking forward to was him. She was relieved that Shengwan Qingchuan's men could stop Do Changye. "Your Highness, I think you've made a mistake. You should go back first. If you cause a ruckus here, it will inconvenience them." Tangua had already come to Do Changye's side and was persuading him softly. Her voice sounded extremely gentle. Old Madam heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that she had really taken action. She was afraid that this shrew would not do anything. She turned around and glared at Chiao Yu and the others. "Humph, all useless things. They could not even catch a man's heart. It must be because they were not hardworking enough. This has nothing to do with you. You'd better mind your own business." Do Changye's eyes were full of coldness when he saw Tangua. Now that he had married someone else, Junhua might have found out about it. That was why she refused to acknowledge him. She was doing it on purpose. Peak. Chapter 32-46. Junhua was a mischievous person to begin with, and he was very jealous. He just couldn't bear to see anyone smile at him. He even said that when they got married in the future, he had to change the servants by his side to servants, in case there were maidservants who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He thought that it made sense. Do Changye glanced at Lu Junhua and realized that she was indeed sizing up Tangua curiously. He thought that he had guessed correctly. Sure, Junhua must have thought that he had married someone else and thus pretended not to know him. "Hurry up and go back. If Madame Dowager didn't insist on marrying you, I wouldn't have allowed it," Do Changye said fiercely. "I have nothing to do with you. Junhua is the only one in my heart. No matter how hard you try, I won't take a look at you." Hurry up and leave. Don't be an eyesore here, Do Changye said coldly. Tang Guo was still smiling. Okay, Your Highness. Madame Dowager stomped her feet in anger. She was indeed useless. Even if she were to break the contract, she wouldn't give her the slave contracts of those maidservants. She wanted to gain something without risking anything. However, when Tang Guo was about to walk back, she suddenly turned around and hit the back of Do Changye's neck with a karate chop before he could react. Do Changye didn't expect such a move at all. He rolled his eyes and fell onto the ground before he could even say a word. Madame Dowager was stunned. Chiu Yu and the rest were dumbfounded. Lu Junhua was also stunned. Tang Guo's movements were too fast just now. Even though she had been staring at her, she didn't see clearly how she suddenly hit the back of Do Changye's neck. She was so accurate too. She was really good at fighting. The little emperor and Shangguan Yungu who had rushed over saw this scene. Shangguan Yungu thought, so this is Uncle Master. She must have recovered a little. Well, someone like her should have recovered some strength to protect herself. Shangguan Qingchuan thought, I knew that the wife of the crown prince was not simple. Indeed, she wasn't simple. That hand chop was not something that an ordinary person could do. It was clean and neat, and it could even knock out a martial artist without any resistance. Even if it was him, he might not be able to knock Do Changye out with a single blow. After all, he had witnessed Do Changye's skills with his own eyes. A few years ago, he had left the palace to play and encountered an assassin from the empire. Even though he had brought a lot of men with him, the other party had come with a ferocious momentum. If he had continued to deal with them, there would have been countless casualties. At that time, Do Changye happened to be in the suburbs and joined in with the other party's men. It was also because of this that he agreed to Do Changye's request to marry Lu Junhua's memorial tablet. You. Madame Dowager walked towards Tang Guo quickly and murmured something to her. However, she didn't finish her sentence because she felt that it was indeed a better way to get Do Changye back. It wasn't her, it was Tang Guo. This way, the conflict between her and her grandson would not continue to intensify. Perhaps, the relationship between her and her grandson would improve because of Tang's help. What are you waiting for? The crown prince has been acting up for such a long time and he has already fainted. Hurry up and carry him back. Get the doctor to come and treat him. Madame Dowager said seriously, but her words were nonsense. Tang Guo did not take it to heart. When she saw Shangguan Yungu, she nodded at them. Madame Dowager, wait a moment. Peek. Chapter 32-47. Shangguan Qingchuan hurriedly called out to old madam, giving her a shock. She almost knelt down with the others but was stopped by Shangguan Qingchuan. He didn't dare to. How could he bear it when his uncle's Uncle Master was around? He could feel his uncle's cold gaze, which meant that if he dared to make old madam and the princess kneel down in front of him, he would be done for. He couldn't afford to offend him. Old madam didn't expect the little emperor and King Duan to be here. She was so scared that she trembled. Fortunately, the maids and nannies around her were used to it. Seeing that she was unsteady, they hurriedly went over to support her, lest she suddenly fell and hurt her bones. What's the matter, young master? Old madam tried her best to maintain her smile and asked in the most respectful tone. Shangguan Qingchuan first glanced at Tang Guo before looking at old madam. He then asked softly, what's wrong with the crown prince? It's just that she's acting up. She's acting up and going crazy. She ran outside someone's residence and made a big fuss. Old madam looked sad. She even brought so many people to cause trouble. I really don't know what to do. If she alarmed young master, please forgive her. I'm so strong, why would I be disturbed? Shangguan Qingchuan had recently figured out that his uncle hated the duke's mansion. Apart from the princess of the duke's mansion, he hated everyone else. Now he knew why Do Changye was making a scene here. It turned out that it was because of the girl he saved. Previously, he had been guessing the identity of the girl. That mysterious force no longer had any effect on him. However, when he was facing Lu Junhua, he would still feel that kind of pull. However, if he wanted to ignore it, he wouldn't. When he wanted to, he would go over and tease her. This girl turned out to be Lu Junhua. How interesting. Didn't Lu Junhua die back then? How did she come back to life with a child? He had sent someone to investigate and found out that the child was really her biological son. According to the child's age, she was pregnant when she was just before she died. According to this deduction, if Lu Junhua didn't fall in love with anyone or have an affair with anyone during the 1 or 2 months when she was alive, there was only one target left. Do Changye was very likely to be the child's biological father. If that was the case, then the two of them were unmarried, which was not a good thing anywhere. Back then, Do Changye had said that Lu Junhua was a very special woman. Everyone in the city had heard that Lu Junhua was a very special woman. If this special case was having an affair with someone before marriage and even having a child, then it would be really special. Perhaps all the proper young ladies in the capital didn't want to have this special privilege. It's fine as long as the young master doesn't blame me. The old madam was all smiles. Such a respectful appearance made some people in the Marquis' estate feel very strange. After all, there were not many people who could enter the palace to see the little emperor. Some people might not even get to see him once in their entire lives. Since the crown prince is sick, I won't fuss over this matter. Shangguan Qingchuan said, if he does it again and disturbs Miss Yun, then don't blame me. Miss Yun. The old madam quivered and subconsciously looked at the people in front of the house. At this time, Lu Junhua had come to Shangguan Qingchuan with the child in her arms. Child Huang, fortunately, you are here. Vertex. Chapter 32-48. Mei Shengji, who had been hiding at the side and watching everything, chuckled. What did he mean by Qingchuan was lucky to be here? Do Changye was obviously subdued by Little Fairy. Little Fairy had knocked him out with a karate chop. Don't worry, it's all right now. The reason why Shangguan Qingchuan still protected Lu Junhua and did not take the initiative to expose everything was that he especially wanted to see if anything strange would happen next. He felt that everything was not simple. Why didn't he realize that Do Changye was not likable in the past? Why did he think that Do Changye was an infatuated person? He was indeed infatuated, but not a good person. Since he had Lu Junhua in his heart and did not want to marry other women, he would fight to the end. After marrying her, even if he did not like her and did not go to her room, he would at least show her some respect. Regardless of whether it was for the sake of the other party, his in-laws, or for the sake of the Marquis' mansion, such a thing should not be spread around and become a joke in the capital city. Do Changye must be out of his mind. If he did not know that Do Changye was snatching her, he would have thought that Do Changye was really crazy. The crown prince insisted that he knew me previously. Lu Junhua calmed down at this moment and could not help but feel doubtful. Did she really know the crown prince of the Marquis' mansion? Did they fall in love with each other? Was she really the person in his heart? However, she already had a child and did not have any memory of the past. She did not know what to do at all. Shangguan Qingchuan was the one who saved her. Of course, she believed him. I'm not sure about this either. Shangguan Qingchuan said, after all, I don't know everyone in this world. Moreover, the person whom the crown prince liked had passed away a few years ago. It's very troublesome to find clues. Shangguan Qingchuan thought for a while and said, "Why don't you go to the Lu family to ask around? Maybe you can find some clues." She wanted him to go with her. Dream on. If he went to accompany another woman, wouldn't it be better for him to go back to the palace and listen to the imperial concubines play some songs for him? Perhaps because he was fair to everyone and coupled with his ruthless methods, the imperial concubines were all obedient now. Be it playing the zither or singing songs, they were all pleasing to the eye. Therefore, if Lu Junhua wanted to gather information, she only needed to arrange 2 people for her. He had given her such a good residence to live in. What else did she want? Could it be that she wanted him, the emperor, to run errands for her? Moreover, Lu Junhua already knew his identity, but she pretended not to know. Did she think that he was an incapable ruler? Indeed, Lu Junhua was good-looking, but he had no interest in snatching a woman from a prince, nor did he want to be a father. Hearing that Shangguan Qingchuan would not help her investigate this matter, Lu Junhua felt a little disappointed. He made up his mind to bring some people to the Lu clan to ask around in 2 days. On the other hand, the old madam left submissively with a group of people. When she heard the little emperor asking if they should arrange for an imperial physician, she quickly refused. He didn't expect that woman to be related to the emperor. She wasn't someone he could afford to offend. Mei Shangji stood in the corner and stared at Tang Guo's departing figure. He was very disappointed. He couldn't even say a word in front of so many people. However, he was very satisfied to be able to stand in a place where he could see his little fairy. At this time, Tang Guo looked back at the place where he was standing and nodded at him with a smile. Mei Shangji was so excited that he almost jumped up. "Shangji, what are you so happy about?" Shangguan Qingchuan patted Mei Shangji. "What did you see that made you so happy?" "The peak." Chapter 32-49. It's nothing, it's nothing. Mei Shangji coughed lightly and quickly retracted his gaze. Shangguan Yungu thought, it's probably because Uncle Master's gaze has affirmed this kid and made him feel that there is hope for immortal cultivation. Speaking of which, this kid had indeed behaved himself recently. Although he did cause trouble, he did not initiate it. If they were to pursue the matter, it should be the other party's fault. Anyway, the king of general had said that people rarely came to complain about him. It was said that Lord Li's son was beaten up by this kid, but he did not come to complain. Later on, they found out that Lord Li's son had abducted a girl and Mei Shangji had merely gone to help her. He had casually beaten someone up and was still alive. He was barely able to get out of bed. He did not have any internal injuries and would recover after lying down for a month. Old madam, that girl has a close relationship with that man. If the crown prince runs out to create trouble again, we don't know what will happen. Qiu Yu and the rest heard Tang Guo's words and felt that she was trying to sow discord. Old madam was thinking about this and she frowned. What should we do then? Changye will probably still go out when he wakes up. Since when did we stop him from going out? We can only think of a way to stop him from going out. Tang Guo said meaningfully. But I can't think of a way. But if the crown prince accidentally escapes, I can help you catch him. I'm sure old madam believes in this. Old madam was speechless. This shrew, nothing good comes out of her mouth. However, she felt that it made sense. Who would have thought that at such a crucial moment, splashing chili would be of some use? All right, I'll think of a way. The crown prince is still unconscious. Before he wakes up, I'll think of a way to deal with this. Regardless of whether that girl was Lu Junhua or not, they could not let Do Changye create trouble again. That girl had a close relationship with the emperor and they could not afford to provoke her. Old madam could not help but sigh. What is going on? After returning to the residence, old Madam realized that Tang Guo was still following her and she could not help but ask, "You can go back now, why are you still following me? Don't tell me you want to serve me. Old Madam, please don't laugh at me. You have countless servants around you. How can you use me?" Tang Guo's smile almost made them angry. The old madam's face stiffened. "I don't mind if there are too many people. If you really want to come, I won't stop you. Old Madam, we're all spoiled and spoiled. We've never served anyone before, so please don't make things difficult for me. Just now, I was able to knock her out with a karate chop. If I accidentally hurt Old Madam, it wouldn't be good. System, dear host, is this okay?" The old lady would be furious. If she were to die of anger, there would be no one left to torture Do Changye. Don't worry, that won't happen. She was most upset with Do Changye, not me. Besides, I've been competing with her for so long that she's already immune to me. Now, even if I do some weird things, she can accept it. System, aw, what a pitiful old lady. Ha ha ha, what a pitiful old lady. Let me laugh first. Old Madam was indeed very angry with Tang Guo's words, but it was only for a moment, and she quickly recovered. Peak. Chapter 3250. How could she not know what kind of person Madame Tang was? She even suspected that Madame Tang wanted to turn the tables on her and become the most powerful person in the Marquis's household. TSK, her ambition was not small. She would not let Madame Tang have her way. She had to live well until she had great-grandchildren. She had to wait until Madame Tang died. Madame Tang, you should go back quickly. If I ask you to take care of the heir, you will definitely refuse. Go back to the courtyard and stay there. Okay, old Madam, give me the indenture agreement first. Old Madame Tang had pretended not to think about it, but since it was brought up and there was a written agreement, she took a deep breath and asked someone to get it. Here, the indenture agreement. Tang Gui gave Chiu Yu, Zhang Yuanxiang, and Li Dongger's indenture agreements to them. Now you are not afraid of being sold. If there is a day when you are free, you can go anywhere you want. We are not going anywhere. Wherever Madame Tang goes, we will be there. Chiu Yu and the others hurriedly said, looking especially nervous. They felt that there was nowhere better than following Madame Tang. Although they were very happy to have their indenture agreements back. Even if they were to leave, how could they survive? Zhang Yuanxiang and Li Dongger were sold by their families. If they went home, they would probably be sold a second time. As for Chiu Yu, she was sold into the Marquis's household when she was young. She had no news of her family and did not know if they were still alive. Moreover, she was even more unwilling to look for her family who sold her. The heir was unreliable and the old madam was even more unreliable. The only person she could rely on was Madame Tang. Rather than wandering outside, it was better to serve Madame Tang for the rest of their lives. Serving tea and water was their specialty. Madame Tang did not need to treat them too well. Madame Tang only needed them to stay. Although Chen Xinyun did not have her indenture agreement, she was not very willing to be set free and return home. Her parents hoped that she could have a place in the Marquis's household. It would be best if she could give birth to the heir. Ever since she came to Tang Gui's side, she realized how good it was for a woman to be free and unbridled. If she left this place, she would be bound by all sorts of rules again. Seeing the girls looking at her with teary eyes and pitiful expressions, Tang Gui said, "Let's leave it at this for now. We can talk about these things in the future." It was impossible to keep her by his side. If these light bulbs stayed by her side, they would disturb her good days. Chiu Yu and the others let out a sigh of relief and decided to serve Madame well in the future so that Madame wouldn't chase them away. Now, they all felt that as long as they could stay by Madam's side, it didn't matter whether they had a husband or not. They had to serve their husband wholeheartedly. Not only did she have to serve her husband, but she also had to serve her parents-in-law. If she had a child, she would have to take care of the child and worry for the family. In the end, her husband would probably think that they were ugly and start taking in concubines. Thinking of this, she felt sad. Speaking of which, it was better to stay by Madam's side. If Madam was a man, it wouldn't matter if they all became concubines and served Madam alone. System, host, the big sisters' faces are all red. When are you going to leave the Marquis estate and be together with your big cutie? If you don't leave now, I'm afraid these girls will only have you in their hearts. Soon, let's torture Do Changye before leaving. The next day, Do Changye woke up in anger. Vertex. Chapter 32:51. Do Changye wanted to teach Tangguo a lesson, but to his surprise, he realized that he couldn't go too far away after waking up. He looked down and realized that he had been chained up. Looking at the thick chains, he was so angry that smoke was about to come out of his body. Who did this? Let me out. Do Changye hollered in the room and even smashed the furnishings in the room. When he found out that it was old Madam's order, he destroyed the entire room. The maids who delivered the food did not dare to get too close. Staring at the room that was in ruins, they shivered in fear. Do Changye threw out a piece of debris casually, scaring the maids so much that they scurried out. The heir must have gone crazy because he's sick, right? Under normal circumstances, he definitely wouldn't be like this. In the past, the crown prince was such a gentle person. The maids felt that it was a pity, but at the thought of her face being smashed by the debris just now, she hurriedly hid her pity. When old Madam heard that the entire room had been reduced to ruins, she patted her chest hard and said, "Fortunately, I listened to Tangguo and used the chains. If I used ordinary ropes, I'm afraid he wouldn't be chained up. Old Madam, there's no other way. We can't lock him up for the rest of his life, can we?" "We still have to think of a good solution," old Madam said worriedly. "If there's a good solution now, can I lock him up?" Old Madam sighed and continued, "Lu Junhua is a reincarnated demoness. The heir almost went crazy when he met her. Now that he met someone who looks exactly like her, he almost caused a huge commotion. Locking him up is better than offending the emperor, right? Once the emperor blames us, we'll be punished. Take yesterday as an example. The emperor probably knows everything and is just doing us a favor. After all, our sons have made great contributions to the Eastern Shang nation and have even been granted a death exemption." "But old Madam, the death exemption was granted by the late emperor and the new emperor is in power now. If we really upset him, it'll be useless." That was what the old duke had told her before he passed away. He told her not to be afraid of anything just because she had the death exemption. Then what should we do? Now that His Highness is making a ruckus in the room, I'm afraid that the iron chain won't be able to hold him down. The old maid said, "His Highness is a smart person, what if he thinks of a way to escape?" "Old Madam, it's not good. I don't know how the heir escaped." Just as the two of them were talking, Chunhua ran in a panic. The words she said shocked the two of them. This matter alarmed everyone in the Marquis' estate. Tangguo also went to have a look after knowing what had happened. She knew that Do Changye's subordinates had entered the room and helped him unlock the chains. This old madam was still not considerate enough. However, it didn't matter. She planned to capture Do Changye later. System, poor Do Changye. The old madam and her entourage looked at the iron chain that had been opened with a lock. Their expressions were ugly. Coincidentally, Tangguo had arrived. Madame Dowager's eyes lit up. Tang Shi, didn't you say earlier that you would be able to invite the heir back if he went out? Hurry up and invite the crown prince back. Old Madame Gu was well aware of how capable Do Changye was. It was impossible for her to catch him with the help of her subordinates. Old Madam, the heir has gone to that house again and he's smashing the door. Peek. Chapter 3252. The butler scurried in and informed Old Madam of the matter. Tang, hurry and bring His Highness back. Old Madam's face turned sullen. Let's go and bring him back. However, Tang Guo remained unmoved and her nonchalant attitude made Old Madam furious. What is she scheming again? Tang, it's already so late. Go and bring him back. You should know that he's not a simple man. If we offend him, the entire Duke's mansion will be doomed. Everyone in the Duke's mansion may lose their lives too. Although Old Madam was exaggerating, it was the truth. Even if they didn't lose their lives, the Duke's mansion would have a hard time if the Emperor really wanted to. The death exemption token could save them from death, but the Emperor could come up with thousands of ways to make them suffer a fate worse than death. Old Madam, His Highness should be wary of me. It won't be easy to catch him this time. Tang Guo continued in a serious tone. It's not that I can't go, but if I do as you say, won't I seem weak? Old Madam was speechless. How much did she owe Tang Guo in her previous life? Tell me, what do you want this time? Tell me everything. Once you're done, hurry and bring His Highness back. It's not that I want anything, but even if I catch His Highness this time, he'll still escape. It's useless. If I don't come up with a foolproof plan, it'll be harder to catch him. Old Madam was still a little uncomfortable with Tang Guo not wanting her things, but what the other party said wasn't unreasonable. That was indeed the case. Do Changye might escape again. Old Madam. Tang Guo walked towards Old Madam and whispered in her ear, I'll go and bring His Highness back now, but you have to think of a way to stop him from escaping again. I happened to come across a type of medicine called the Kung Fu dispersing pill. Once someone takes it, they'll lose their Kung Fu. It'll be much easier to control them. Old Madam's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly felt that Tang Guo was a ruthless person. She actually dared to suggest giving Do Changye such a pill. However, without Old Madam's permission, I won't give it to His Highness. There's only one pill, so I left it with Old Madam. Tang Guo handed a bottle of medicine to Madame Gu. You really shouldn't use this unless you have no other choice. Therefore, it's very safe to leave it in Old Madam's care. The Old Madam's expression changed. Is there really only one? It's very rare. I only gave it to people who came to my shop to buy jade wares because they couldn't afford that much money. He only had one, and I only agreed because he was really pitiful. Who would have thought that it could be used in such a way? Who would use this thing when they have nothing to do? So now you're willing to invite the Crown Prince back? I'll go now. She definitely had to go and beat Do Changye up at the same time. She definitely couldn't miss the opportunity. They hurriedly headed to the mansion that they had visited previously because Do Changye had left early in the morning. There were actually very few people around the residence. When they arrived, there were only a few people. Do Changye was slashing the door with a knife. Tang Guo paused for a moment and then walked over. Old Madam's heart trembled when she saw the knife in Do Changye's hand. Old Madam, do you think Tang Guo will be in danger? Changye has already gone crazy. Peek. Chapter 3253. Looking at the menacing young man, Old Madame Dowager felt helpless. Why is he so disobedient? What's so good about Lu Junhua that he's willing to be with her regardless of his grudge? If I really agree to let them be together, wouldn't I be letting my son down? He also said that Lu Junhua shouldn't be implicated in the matters of the previous generation. However, wasn't Lu Junhua's father the one who indirectly harmed my son? Before old Madame Dowager could speak, Tanghua had already walked to Do Changya's side. Young master, come back with me. Old Madame Dowager is very worried about you. Don't make a fuss here. Old Madame Dowager said that the young master of this mansion is not someone we can afford to offend. Tanghua's voice finally made Do Changya sober up a little. He turned around with the knife and looked at Tanghua coldly. A cruel smile flashed across his lips. You still dare to appear in front of me? I thought you were a good girl, but in the end, you're someone who wants to replace Junhua. Don't even think about it. Since you're disobedient, don't blame me for being ruthless. With that, Do Changya swung the knife towards Tanghua. In the script, Do Changya would not be so impulsive. However, Do Changya had completely lost his rationality now. He felt that anyone who stood in the way of him and Lu Junhua deserved to die. Oh my God! Old Madame Dowager shrieked when she saw it. She was dumbfounded. There was no way she could stop it at such a distance. Seeing that Do Changya's knife was about to land on Tanghua's body, Tanghua initially wanted to avoid it. It was a piece of cake for her to avoid it at such a speed. However, she sensed something and did not avoid it. The onlookers thought that Tanghua was dead and that Do Changya had completely lost his mind. In fact, after creating so much trouble, Do Changya had long lost his reputation in the capital city. On the contrary, there were many people who pitied Tanghua now. Ah, clang! Do Changya, who was supposed to slash Tanghua with his sword, suddenly shrieked, followed by the sound of the sword falling to the ground. Without even blinking, Tanghua lowered her head to look at the saber which was stained with blood. Then, she looked up at Do Changya who was covering his wrist with his hand. There was a dagger in Do Changya's wrist. Do Changya's face was pale and the pain in his wrist prevented him from asking about Tanghua. Meanwhile, the people around Do Changya were all looking in the same direction vigilantly. A group of young people walked in from a certain direction. The leader of the group was a young man. He waved his folding fan and strode forward with his feet splayed outwards. He looked particularly arrogant. The Marquis' heir actually dared to brandish his blade at a girl. You've really opened my eyes. Although Mei Shangji said these words in a relaxed manner and even carried his usual indifference, in reality, his heartbeat had been speeding up and was about to jump out of his chest. Only the heavens knew how scared he was when he saw that scene. Fortunately, he had sent someone to keep an eye on little fairy's whereabouts. Otherwise, Do Changya would have killed his little fairy before he arrived in time. At that time, he threw the dagger over without hesitation and used all his strength to pierce through Do Changya's wrist. He even used his inner force on Do Changya. Do Changya's hand had already been crippled by him and there was no way he could hold a saber again. The dagger that was infused with inner force had already destroyed the meridians in his wrist. Peak. Chapter 3254. However, the group of rich heirs behind Mei Shangji were dumbfounded to see how accurate Mei Shangji was. They had always thought that their boss was just like them, an incompetent hedonist who only knew how to play with birds, fight crickets, and bully others. They did not expect their boss to throw the dagger so accurately. Was it a coincidence, or was their boss hiding his true abilities? They thought that he was hiding his true abilities. After all, he was the precious son of the king general. He couldn't possibly be a good-for-nothing who didn't know anything. They had agreed to be good-for-nothings for the rest of their lives, but in the end, they were the only ones who were good-for-nothings. Did their boss hide his true colors because he was afraid that they would feel inferior? Mei Shangji, you shouldn't be meddling in this matter. Dou Changye was trembling in anger. He had already sensed the internal energy in his wrist and knew that his wrist was most likely crippled. Mei Shangji walked in front of Dou Changye. It seemed like he was going to reason with him, but in fact, he was shielding Tang Guo behind him. No one could bully his little fairy with him around. Dou Changye was a heartless bastard who had the audacity to bully his little fairy and even slash her with a knife. If not for the fact that he knew that he could not kill Dou Changye, he would be in trouble. After all, he was going to accompany his little fairy for the rest of her life. At that moment, he really wanted to throw the dagger at Dou Changye's neck and end his life. I'm really going to meddle in this matter. Your Highness, you've openly brought people here to create trouble. You slashed the door and then drew a knife to kill your wife. Everyone in Capital City said that you abandoned your husband on the night of your wedding. It seems that it's true. Actually, you should be thanking me. If you had really killed your wife in public, you would have been on the chopping block. Now, it's just one of my hands being crippled. Mei Shangji. It's not like we don't know each other. Don't keep calling my name. I'm not deaf. You've called me that once. He looked at the door that had not been forced to open. This is Qingchuan's place and the people living here are his guests. No matter what, I have the right to meddle in this matter. Changye, come back with us. Old Madame Dowager heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that Tang Guo was not injured. However, she felt heartache when she saw the blood on Dou Changye's hand. He blamed Mei Shangji a little in his heart. If he wanted to stop someone, then stop them. Why did he have to be so heavy-handed? At the same time, he found Tang Guo even more unpleasant to the eye. Ha! Dou Changye looked at old madam sarcastically and said, I won't return to the mansion anymore. Since I can't be with Junhua because of my status as the heir, I might as well give up on it. I want to wait for Junhua to come out and let her understand that I can give up everything for her. Lu Junhua had already opened the door and came out. She had actually seen everything that had happened through the crack in the door. After all, there were already several holes in the door. Although she was terrified just now, she pitied Dou Changye when she saw the blood on his hands. She even began to suspect if she was really related to Dou Changye. She had asked the Lu family to inquire about Lu Junhua, but the Lu family didn't seem to be willing to mention Lu Junhua, so she didn't get any information. Junhua, you're finally willing to come out and see me, Dou Changye said agitatedly. Lu Junhua sighed. Prince, you should go back. I'm really not the person you're looking for. Why do you have to humiliate yourself like this? Look, you're bleeding. Go back and get a doctor to bandage your wounds. Junhua, are you concerned about me? Peek. Chapter 32:55. Dou Changye's menacing expression returned to normal and he even smiled. He stared at Lu Junhua tenderly. Lu Junhua's heart trembled when he looked at her. She felt a kind of panic that she had never felt before. She didn't know what to do. They had only met twice and Dou Changye had done many infuriating things. Yet, why couldn't she get angry at him? Prince, go back and get your wound bandaged. You look really pale. Let's sit down and have a good talk if anything happens to you in the future. Although Lu Junhua could not remember anything, she gradually felt that she might be related to Lu Junhua. Regardless of whether there was anything going on between her and Dou Changye or what happened afterward, she wanted to find out about her identity. If the Lu family did not mention Lu Junhua, she would not be able to find out about it. Dou Changye was the only one who knew about it now. Perhaps she would be able to recall something after interacting with him. Junhua, are you willing to see me? Yes, but you can't be as agitated as you were the previous 2 times. Actually, I want to find out about my identity too. I can't remember anything that happened in the past. If you want to see me, you can knock on the door. You don't have to use a knife. Seeing that Do Changye's wrist was still bleeding, Lu Junhua said worriedly, hurry and get a doctor to take a look at your injury. Regardless of what you do, you have to be healthy. Okay, I'll get someone to get a doctor to bandage it for me. Do Changye immediately instructed his subordinates to get a doctor. Not long after, the doctor returned with a medical kit and bandaged Do Changye's wound. Prince, you have to recuperate well. Don't practice martial arts for the time being. The doctor sighed and continued, your wrist has been injured. I'm afraid you won't be able to hold a knife in the future. Doctor, is there no other way? Lu Junhua asked anxiously. She felt that it would be a pity if Do Changye could not hold a knife in the future since he was still so young. Do Changye was initially infuriated. No matter what, he and Mei Shangji had become enemies. However, after hearing Lu Junhua's concern, he felt that his injury was worth it. If it weren't for the fact that his hand was injured, Junhua would not have come out to see him. At the thought of it, he really hoped that his injury would heal slowly. It's all right, I'll use my left hand from now on. As long as Junhua is willing to see me, I won't be afraid even if I lose both my hands. Tang Gua and Mei Shangji looked at each other, then looked away tacitly. Mei Shangji was so angry that he laughed. He originally didn't have any opinions about Lu Junhua. Now, with Lu Junhua's performance, he had a lot of opinions. What kind of friends did Shangwan Qing Chuan make? Didn't he see Do Changye almost kill Little Fairy? However, Lu Junhua was so concerned about Do Changye's hand that she completely forgot that Do Changye had almost killed her. Madam, are you all right? Mei Shangji interrupted the two of them and asked in a loud voice, just now, this young master just happened to see the crown prince draw his sword and attack you. Were you scared silly? Don't you know how to dodge? If it wasn't for me, you would have lost your life. Actually, Mei Shangji had come to his senses. Even if he had not intervened, Little Fairy should be fine. After all, she was a little fairy. However, that was not the reason why he could forgive Do Changye for hurting her. Previously, he hadn't been able to find an opportunity to teach the other party a lesson, but today, he could finally vent his anger. Vertex. Chapter 3256. Don't you think it was dangerous just now? Mei Shangji waved his fan and boasted, today, this young master has done a good deed. That cocky look of his was especially amusing and annoying, yet oddly adorable at the same time. Yeah, I didn't expect the heir of the Marquis's mansion to want to kill his wife in public. Heir, what feud do you have with her that you can't tolerate her? Yeah, since you don't like her, why did you agree to marry her? I've always felt that some people are worse than us. We can fool around, but if we marry a wife, we have to give her some face. Yeah, although I'm a bit lecherous and have many concubines, I can guarantee that I didn't mistreat my wife. All the concubines may be doted on, but they can't be more doted on than the wife. It's even more impossible for me to abandon her on the night of my wedding and kill her in public. I heard that the heir of the Marquis's mansion is an infatuated person. He even married a memorial tablet for Lu Junhua. Since you're so infatuated with Lu Junhua, why did you delay her? You didn't treat her well after marrying her. You're really inhumane. Yeah, you're inhumane. We can't stand it anymore. Old Madam was embarrassed to be criticized by the famous hedonists in the capital city. Do Changye seemed to be numb to it. He didn't care about it at all. It's none of your business to meddle in the affairs of the Marquis's mansion. Pfft, disgusting thing. He did something immoral and still doesn't know his mistake. Why did everyone praise him in the past? I really don't understand. And Miss Yun, you really can't tell right from wrong just now. If it weren't for our boss, Do Changye would have killed her. Do you really not know the truth? Do Changye almost killed his wife and you're actually concerned about his injury. Miss Yun, you're making me laugh. Do you think you can get rid of me for the sake of the capital city? Lu Junhua's face was burning. She didn't think so much just now. She was just worried when she saw Do Changye's wrist bleeding profusely and had a strange feeling in her heart. Now that he thought about it, what he did just now was indeed a little inappropriate. You don't have to pay attention to them. They are all unreasonable people. Do Changye noticed the anger on Lu Junhua's face and said, I have nothing to do with her. Old madam is the one who fancies her. Don't get the wrong idea. Do Changye's explanation infuriated old madam. Tang family, help me get the air back, old madam shouted angrily as she slammed her walking stick on the ground. This time, Do Changye was on guard and dodged immediately. Tanghua had no chance to get close to him. Lu Junhua recalled how Tanghua had knocked Do Changye unconscious previously and felt a little sympathetic towards him. She always felt that the women of the Marquis' estate were a bit unreasonable. You don't have to invite me, I'll go back in a while. This time, Do Changye spoke up. Old madam, I won't create trouble again. Since Junhua had already agreed to see him, why was he still making a fuss? This Tang family was taking advantage of the conflict between him and the old madam. He wouldn't let her have her way. Do Changye was already planning in his heart how he could get together with Lu Junhua legitimately. He glanced at Tanghua coldly and thought to himself, I can't let the Tang family stay. Mei Shangji could sense it and frowned. This guy is trying to deal with my little fairy again. He's courting death. Peek. Chapter 3257. Old Madame Dowager stared at Do Changye doubtfully. Seeing that Do Changye did not seem as agitated as before, she thought that it was time for him to calm down. Since Do Changye said that he was willing to go back, he was still her grandson. If she were to go on, she might not be able to resolve the issue. Are you really willing to go back? Old Madame Dowager asked. Do Changye nodded and said, I'll speak to Miss Yun for a while before going back. Old Madame Dowager, if you're still worried, you can wait here for a while. Seeing that Do Changye was behaving well, Old Madame Dowager felt relieved and decided to trust him for once. All right, I'll wait for you here then. We'll go back together later. As long as Do Changye didn't act recklessly and brought his men to kidnap and break the door, there shouldn't be a problem. However, even then, she still detested the person who looked exactly like Lu Junhua. If it weren't because of this woman, Do Changye wouldn't be so crazy. Do Changye really spoke to Lu Junhua for a while before walking towards Old Madame Dowager. Old Madame Dowager, let's go back. Just now, he had figured out some things. Instead of going against Old Madame Dowager, it would be better to maintain peace on the surface. Since he couldn't make Junhua believe him for the time being, he needed time to let her remember what happened in the past. During this period, he would maintain peace with Old Madame Dowager so that nothing would happen. Otherwise, Old Madame Dowager would bring her men to create trouble every time he came to look for her. He had already told Junhua just now that he would tell her about her background slowly in the future. When he was free, he would even bring her to the places they used to go. Before Do Changye left, he turned back to look at Lu Junhua and the child beside her. If Junhua remembered everything and was willing to marry him, he wouldn't mind the child. Compared to the child, Junhua being alive was obviously more important. Mr. May, I have to go back too. Thank you so much for today. Tang Guo nodded at Mei Shangji. Since old Madame Dowager had gone back, she had to go back too. It shouldn't be long before the Marquis's estate will have a big show to sing. System, host, are you preparing to divorce your husband? Tang Guo said, almost. Mei Shangji tried his best to make himself appear more normal. It's just a casual thing. Although this young master is only a hedonistic son, I'm only a hedonistic son who likes to bully hedonistic tyrants. I'm not like some people who only know how to bully weak women. Although his little fairy was not a weak woman, the kind that could knock someone unconscious with a chop. But in his heart, she needed someone to protect her. I didn't expect young Master Mei to be such a principled person. Tang Guo praised her and then left. Mei Shangji smiled foolishly. Yes, he was a very principled person. As expected, little fairy didn't understand the crowd. She was so special when it came to praising people. Mei Shangji only withdrew his gaze after Tang Guo's figure disappeared. He felt that his subordinates were all looking at him. He flung his sleeves and said, "Why are you all looking at me? Boss, your skills are so good. Didn't we agree to be trash together? Why did you secretly practice martial arts?" The group of hedonistic subordinates surrounded Mei Shangji in the middle, as if they wouldn't leave until he made himself clear. Mei Shangji was rather pleased with himself. What do you know? Even if you're useless, you can still practice martial arts. Peak. Chapter 3258. Why, boss? Isn't it good to be a good-for-nothing who doesn't know how to eat, drink, and play? Anyway, even if the sky collapses, I'll be there to support it. What's there to be afraid of? What if I can't take it anymore? Mei Shangji said softly, besides, wouldn't it be more convenient for us to bully others if we're good at martial arts? We may be a little useless, but as a person, we must have a skill. If we can't take it anymore, we can continue to be good-for-nothings with this skill. Mei Shangji's words made the group of good-for-nothings better than studying for 10 years. They felt that it made sense. Yes, boss is good at martial arts. It's much more convenient for us to bully others. Just like just now, if boss didn't know martial arts, the dagger wouldn't have pierced Do Changye's wrist so accurately. If boss had sent someone to help, not only would they not have been able to stop it, they wouldn't have been as domineering as they were now. Okay, let's go, I'll treat you to some wine at the restaurant. Mei Shangji was in a good mood after being praised by Little Fairy. For the past year or so, he had been working hard to earn money and basically freeloading off of his underlings. It was rare for him to be so generous. He just felt that even if he was earning money, he couldn't squander it like before. The money that he was earning now was all for Little Fairy. However, he was too happy today and decided to treat his underlings to a meal. Boss, have you paid off your debt? Or did the King of General increase your monthly expenses? In the past year or so, their boss had become more and more stingy, but they didn't mind. After all, they didn't lack money. Although I'm still a little tight on money, I can't freeload off of you all the time. I'll treat you today. Mei Shangji's underlings were extremely touched by his words. Indeed, boss treated them well. Even though he knew that they didn't lack money, he still didn't want to take advantage of them. What Mei Shangji didn't know was that the sentence he said today, even if you're a hedonistic son of a rich family, you still need to have a skill, had been heard by these underlings. After the meal, the group of good-for-nothings pondered about what skills they could have. After a long time, these foppish young masters who were feared by everyone really had a skill that they could call their own, causing everyone to exclaim in admiration. Upon returning to the Duke's mansion, Do Changye stayed by old Madame's side and the two of them were chatting merrily. they didn't seem like they had gotten into a conflict at all. Although Madame Dowager did not think that Do Changyi would be so obedient as to give up looking for the woman with the surname Yun. However, now that Do Changye was no longer throwing a tantrum in front of her and had calmed down, she felt more at ease. "Old madam, I haven't talked to you in a long time. Let's have a good chat today." Do Changye suddenly said, "I think there are many problems that we should solve properly. After all, we're family." The words, "we are family," had already moved old madam. "Good, good. Changye, I'm really glad that you're willing to sit down and talk." Now, old madam had learned to be smart. She didn't mention Lu Junhua or the woman surnamed Yun. She mainly felt that the woman with the surname Yun had a close relationship with the young emperor. Do Changye was just the heir of a crown prince. Could he really compete with the emperor? Could he win? She was Do Changye's grandmother. Instead of arguing with him and stopping him, she would rather talk to him calmly. Peak. Chapter 32:59. Anyway, it was impossible for Do Changye to snatch her away from the young emperor. After figuring it out, old madam suddenly felt that she had gone overboard. In particular, she had knocked Do Changye unconscious and locked him up. It was no wonder that he was angry. "Changye, I stopped you previously because I was afraid that you would anger the emperor. We're just a small family, how can we compare to the emperor? I was just afraid that you would lose your life because of a woman. That's why I had no choice but to stop you." Do Changye said, "Old madam, sorry to have made you worry. I just felt that the woman resembled her a lot and I couldn't control myself. I've already thought it through just now and I won't act so impulsively in the future. Tang, you may go back first. I'd like to have a chat with Changye." Old madam suddenly felt that Tang Guo was looking at her strangely and could not stand it. Hurry and go back. Now, she felt that Tang Guo's ideas were all bad. Her grandson was not that bad. He was just bewitched by a woman who resembled her. Now that he had figured it out, he would not make the same mistake again. "Old madam, I won't disturb you then. Have a good chat." Hearing Tang Guo's perfunctory tone, Do Changye felt that he could not let Tang Guo stay. Tang Guo had actually turned the entire duke's mansion upside down when he was not paying attention. If Tang Guo had not sowed discord, old madam would not have thought of locking him up with a metal chain. Tang Guo led the concubines back to the mansion leisurely. She looked relaxed, but these concubines were different. Every one of them had a frown on their faces. They could see the icy cold gaze in Do Changye's eyes. Now that he had reconciled with old madam was probably having a hard time. Indeed, in the next few days, Do Changye spent most of his time with old madam. The two of them were getting closer and closer, and they could no longer tolerate Tang Guo, who was an outsider. "In that case, Tang Guo is different from what you've heard before." Old madam humphed coldly and said, "It's not just different, it's completely different." The matchmaker said it in a gentle and well-mannered manner. "In the end, after interacting with her, I realized that she's a shrew who doesn't care about an old woman like me at all. Since you're so disobedient, why didn't old madam set the rules?" Do Changye asked as he looked down. He would be worried as long as Madame Tang was in the mansion. And he had no intention of letting Tang Shi stay in the household. The other party was still using the name of his legal wife. In the future, when Junhua came to the Marquis's mansion, wouldn't she be very resistant to the Tang family? Since this was the case, he felt it was best to find a reason to kick Tang Kor out as soon as possible. It was definitely impossible to divorce her directly. After all, he didn't enter the Tang family's room on their wedding night. If word got out, he wouldn't be in the right and it would affect Junhua negatively. If he killed her, with so many people watching, it would be even more unacceptable if Madame Tang died of an illness in the mansion. Old Madam, since Tang's personality can't calm down, I have a suggestion. Old Madam's eyes trembled. She knew that Do Changye's attitude had improved because he had not really let go of Yun Shi. However, as long as Do Changye was obedient and didn't create trouble, or act rashly to snatch Yun Shi away from the emperor, she could turn a blind eye to some things. What suggestion? Old Madam asked. She wouldn't agree to divorce her. Peak. Chapter 3260. If he were to divorce her now, he would become a joke. Why don't we let Tang cultivate in the temple for a period of time and recuperate? She can also pray for old Madam and father. What do you think? Do Changye suggested after careful consideration. He felt that it was the best solution at the moment. Old Madam definitely wouldn't allow him to divorce her. Besides, if he were to really divorce her, he would become a joke in the mansion and old Madam would definitely not agree. It was even more impossible for him to kill Tang. If he did not do it cleanly, he might even get into trouble. Besides, the concubines would not be able to fight against him. He had already found out that Tang had taken the concubine slave contracts in order to protect him. Old Madam would definitely agree to let Tang cultivate in the temple in the name of praying for blessings. According to the news he received, Tang Kor often went against the old Madam and angered her to death. Old Madam indeed thought that it was a good idea. She had always wanted to teach Tang a lesson. Now that Tang Changye had stopped kicking up a fuss with her, Tang was no longer of any use. Tang Changye would always smile weirdly in front of her and say some sarcastic things, which infuriated her. It's indeed time to send her to recuperate for a period of time. Since old Madam has agreed, I'll make the arrangements. Do Changye was relieved. Since Tang Changye had gone to the temple, it was better for her not to come back. He had already found the most secluded temple with the toughest conditions. He also heard that there were bandits on the mountain where the temple was located. Tang Changye didn't know how long she could live there and it would depend on her fate. Tang Gui didn't have much of a reaction when she heard about it. Unlike before, she didn't resist and instead agreed to pray for blessings this time. However, the concubines in the mansion were at a loss for words. They wanted to stop her but didn't know what to say. Since the heir and old Madam had already reconciled, what right did they have to say anything? They understood that no matter how much old Madam blamed the heir, she would still be close to him eventually. Poor Madam, they didn't know when she would return. Don't worry, you guys stay in the mansion. Don't cause any trouble when I'm not around. What was there to worry about? She was going to live a carefree life soon. She did want to meet the bandits. Since they were bandits, it was simple. Since they had a feud and weren't good people, she could just kill them. But what Tang Gui didn't expect was that when she went out the next day, several concubines actually carried their bags and went out with her. What are you guys doing? Tang Gui understood that these people wanted to follow her. You don't need to follow me. I have Lychee by my side. Chiao Yu said, Madam, we went to see the Crown Prince last night. The Crown Prince has agreed to let us accompany Madam in her cultivation. Tang Guo was a little speechless. Do Changye was just worried that he wouldn't be able to get rid of these concubines, yet they were rushing to do it. System, dear host, since all the ladies want to follow you, you can take them with you. To be careful. To be. System, I think so. Just like that, Tang Guo brought the concubines to the temple to cultivate. It was announced that the concubines would be praying for blessings for the old Madam and the Duke who had been paralyzed for many years. Peak. Chapter 3261. In the beginning, no one felt that there was anything wrong. After all, such things would happen in many families. However, they would usually go for a month or 3 months. They had never seen someone who would not come back once they went. Damn it! When Mei Shangji heard this news, he smashed the table with his fist. He quickly sent people to inquire about Tangua's whereabouts. Half a day later, the people he sent came back and inquired about the conditions of the temple as well as its surroundings. The temple was called Qingguang Temple. It was not in a good condition and was located on the mountain. There were almost no signs of human habitation in the surroundings. It was said that there was no sign of human habitation because the mountain had been occupied by bandits. Qingguang Temple was able to survive until now because they did not have anything. The monks in the temple either grew their own food or dug up wild vegetables. Even if they robbed the temple for 100 years, they would not find anything good. However, a beautiful girl like Tang Guo was sent to that place to pray for blessings. If the bandits found out, would they still be alive? Mei Shengji was furious when he heard the news. Dou Changya actually bullied his little fairy. Mei Shengji did not stay for long and hurriedly went to look for the king of general. Father, let's discuss something. What's the matter? The king of general looked up. If you want to borrow a jade pillow, I won't give it to you. It's not that. Mei Shengji walked to the king of general. Father, I plan to do a good deed. Lend me some men. Although he had many men, they were not as powerful as his father. Moreover, it would be easier to use his father's bodyguards to do such a thing. His men could still bully the tyrants in the capital, but if they were to really use their knives to kill people, they would still be lacking. It seemed that he had to train a group of men. In order to protect his little fairy, he had to make some changes. What good deed? How many men do you need? Where are you going to do it? The king of general was still lying on the rattan chair and basking in the sun. His body was no longer in pain and he was living a comfortable life. However, his legs were still inconvenient. That was a permanent injury. Unless God was reincarnated, no one would be able to make his legs recover. If he could recover, he would not be able to resist the urge to go to the border again. Bandit suppression. I heard that there are many bandits in a place, causing the surrounding people to suffer. Mei Shangji said in all seriousness, growing up, I've heard many stories from my father, so I plan to get rid of evil for the people. After being a bastard for so many years, I also want to do something meaningful and give my father some face. The king of general had a strange look on his face. I don't believe it. Father, even if you don't believe me, you have to believe me. If you don't believe me, just watch. I'm really going to suppress bandits. I'll enter the palace in a while. I'll have to trouble Qingchuan to give me an imperial edict. I'm following an imperial edict to suppress bandits. The general king sat up. We're really going to exterminate the bandits. Really? All right. I'll give you 100 men. 50 will do. Mei Shengji entered the palace. Shengguan Qingchuan heard that he was going to suppress the bandits on the mountain of Qingguang Temple. Shengji, are you really going to investigate the bandits at Qingguang Temple? I've long heard that the bandits there often rob the people passing by the mountain. Unfortunately, I've sent soldiers there several times, but those bandits are very cunning and have been fruitless. Shengguan Qingchuan was very happy. All right, I'll immediately give you an imperial edict and send some soldiers to you. The peak. Chapter 3262. Shengguan Qingchuan happily wrote the imperial edict. Shangji, actually, I always knew that as the son of the Lord General, you can't be a good-for-nothing. I still remember when I went out of the palace to play when I was little, and you helped me when I was cheated. At that time, I knew you weren't simple. Qingchuan, hurry up and write. I don't need soldiers. I borrowed my father's personal guards. It's too eye-catching to have too many people, and it'll easily arouse the vigilance of the bandits. I'm very worried about the people around me. I'll only be at ease after I kill all the bandits. By the way, this matter can't be spread before we succeed. I'm afraid that the bandits will hear the noise and slip away. This time, I'll take my father's personal guards and disguise them as a caravan. When the bandits dare to come down, I'll make them suffer. Although he didn't know why his little fairy didn't resist and wanted to go to the temple to cultivate. But he could still do something to help her clean up the surroundings. He made that place quieter so that she could live comfortably. Life on the mountain was poor, and it wouldn't be convenient to buy anything. How about he arrange for a few merchants to go over to sell things later? Then he could create some rumors so that the people at the foot of the mountain would think that the Buddha of the Qingguang temple had appeared, and they would all go to worship him. At that time, the mountain would be bustling with people, and there would naturally be more people buying things. The scenery there seemed to be good, and it was indeed a place to raise people. After Shangguan Qingchuan finished writing the imperial edict and stamped it, he found that Mei Shangji was leaning to one side, his eyes lost in thought. He could see the flickering light and joy in his eyes. Seeing this, Shangguan Qingchuan was somewhat happy. If Shangji could inherit everything of the Lord General, how good would it be to become another Lord General in the future? He thought highly of Mei Shangji, and since young, he felt that Mei Shangji would do great things. If it weren't for Mei Shangji's restraint, those playboys in the capital would really become complete playboys and bullies, and not the upper-class playboys who only bullied playboys and bullies. That's right, Shangguan Qingchuan divided the playboys in the capital into different grades in his heart. Shangji, here you go. Thanks. Don't mention it. I've had a headache about the bandits in Qingguang Temple before. The people I sent couldn't catch them. Even if they could kill a few, they couldn't find their nest. Mei Shangji patted Shangguan Qingchuan's chest. You are still too inexperienced. My father said that the local bandits were colluding. They had already gotten the news and ran away. Is that true? Shangguan Qingchuan slapped the table angrily. He was paid a salary, but he didn't dare to do anything serious. He even dared to collude with bandits. I will definitely send someone to investigate this matter thoroughly. I will definitely not let this dog official off easy. Then there are many things to investigate. Mei Shangji said, you're tired enough. Every time you issue an edict, your subordinates go with great fanfare. They're not there to pay the fee at all, but to scare the bandits. They're there to tell the bandits that the imperial court has sent people to exterminate them and for them to run quickly. Do you think they can exterminate them? Shangguan Qingchuan's face turned ugly. I'll choose a capable person. It's useless. Mei Shangji patted Shangguan Qingchuan's shoulder. The idea is good, but in reality, it won't work. Capable people have been promoted by you. They have high official positions and are also loyal to you. But there is a drawback. What drawback? Mei Shangji laughed. The drawback is that if you move your ass, the whole capital will know. What's there to investigate? Top point. Chapter 3263. That's true. Shangguan Qingchuan fell into distress. After being assisted by imperial uncle for so many years, there are still many things that I can't handle well. There are too many things that I need to learn. Take it slow. Mei Shangji suddenly thought of something and said quietly, actually, If you really want to investigate something, if you want to govern, it's better to catch them off guard. The more unreliable they seem, the more miraculous they can be in the end. Shangji, just say it. Since you mentioned this today, there must be a way. Shangguan Qingchuan's eyes lit up. In his mind, Mei Shangji was also his boss. When he was still a young prince, he often played in the capital. It was always Mei Shangji who took him. It was too late to return to the palace, so he basically stayed in the general's residence. Others thought that Mei Shangji was an ignorant bastard, but in reality, Mei Shangji was very good at everything. My subordinates don't have much to do recently. You all know them, we all grew up together. Summon them into the palace and have them help you with this matter. Wherever they go, everyone will think that they are sightseeing, and not investigating a case. Shangji, you are indeed a talented person. Shangguan Qingchuan looked at Mei Shangji like he was looking at a delicious cake. I think that you can not only become a very excellent general, but also a very good civil official. Capable in civil and military matters, you are simply omnipotent. If my Dongshang kingdom had someone like you. I'm leaving first, don't find me if there's nothing. After suppressing the bandits, I will be very busy. I have to do a very important thing. Shangguan Qingchuan looked at Mei Shangji's departing figure with some disappointment, shaking his head. If Shangji likes power, I will give him as high an official as he wants. Even if he is a little greedy, there is no problem. Mei Shangji took the imperial edict and the general's 50 personal guards, disguised as passing merchants, and passed by the road at the foot of Qingguang Temple. At this time, Tanggua had already moved into Qingguang Temple. She had expected that the conditions of Qingguang Temple were very poor, so she had asked the shop assistants to send up many things in advance. Originally, Qiu Yu and the others were already here to suffer, but they didn't expect the room to be so clean. They didn't need to do anything at all. Madam, we don't seem to be of much help. Qiu Yu was a little ashamed. We've even caused you trouble. Tanggua shook her head and asked Lichi to take out the leaf play. You can still help me play the leaf play. It's still the same old rules. Those who lose 3 rounds will be eliminated. One day, when the host passed by the small courtyard where Tanggua lived, he suddenly heard noises coming from inside. The women who lived here were all from the Marquis's household. They had come to the temple to pray for blessings. If something were to happen, he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Therefore, he walked over. The door was open, but he still knocked on the door. He was just about to ask if something had happened. Qiu Yu said, "Ah, I finally won. Yuanxiang, Dong hurry up and pay up." The abbot looked at the womenfolk playing with leaves and didn't know what expression to make for a moment. He couldn't do anything about it. When he shook his head and was about to leave, he thought of something and knocked on the door again. Tanggua stood up and nodded, "So it's the abbot. May I know why the abbot has come?" Vertex. Chapter 3264. Dear benefactors, I'm just here to remind you. If there's nothing important, try not to go out. If you want to buy anything, just ask your attendants to go down the mountain. You may not know that there's a group of powerful bandits living in the mountain where the Qingguang Temple is located. The reason why they didn't rob the Qingguang Temple was that the temple was too poor and there was nothing to gain. But now, it was different. These women were all beautiful. Once the bandits found out, who knew what would happen? Got it. Thank you, Abbot. Abbot, I think the temple is a bit shabby, so I'm going to donate some money to repair it. The abbot wanted to refuse, but Tanggua continued, especially the door outside the courtyard. It's too shabby. If we encounter any beasts, we may not be able to resist them, not to mention the bandits. The abbot thought about it and didn't refuse. In half a month, the temple had been repaired. Tanguo asked someone to take out the seeds and led Chiu Yu and the others to plant vegetables in the open space around the temple. Looking at this situation, the abbot's view of Tanguo was different from before. Some things couldn't be judged based on the surface. Although these women didn't seem to be cultivating in seclusion, after all, no one cultivated in seclusion every day. But the abbot thought that the wife of the heir didn't need to cultivate in seclusion. Tanguo planned to deal with those bandits as soon as possible. After all, there were people around her every day and she couldn't leave. Otherwise, she would wait for the bandits to take the initiative to provoke them and then get rid of them, so as to make Do Changye's plan fail. The abbot was also worried that the bandits would come to the temple at any time. He was so tired that he only slept for 2 or 3 hours at night. Until one day, many people came to the Qingguang temple. The abbot went out to receive them and was really shocked. Judging from the clothes of these people, they were all very rich. When he heard that these noble women were actually there to worship Buddha, the abbot received them with a kind face, but in fact, he was very confused. Fortunately, the temple had been repaired, so it wasn't too rude to receive these nobles. The vegetables planted by Tanguo and the people in the temple could also be eaten. After these nobles paid their respects to the Buddha, they ate the vegetarian food here and were full of praise for this place, saying that it was indeed the place where the true Buddha manifested. After the abbot asked, he found out that there were rumors outside that a true Buddha had manifested in his temple. It was said that many people saw a true Buddha at the foot of the mountain one day. He was connected to the clouds in the sky and looked at everyone with a benevolent face. Because of that, countless people came to worship the Buddha. There were many people on the first day, the second day, and even more on the third day. Not only the nobles, but even some of the commoners came up. At this moment, the abbot heard another piece of news. The bandit lair had been wiped out. It was said that the current emperor had received the guidance of the true Buddha and sent people to suppress the bandits. Many people believed that the true Buddha was protecting these people and showing them the way. Because the bandits committed all kinds of evil and only bullied innocent people, the true Buddha couldn't stand it anymore and pointed the way for the soldiers. This time, they were able to eliminate the bandits in one fell swoop. The abbot, who didn't believe anything and was still very confused, also said Amitabha, Buddha, bless us. Now, he was really not worried that someone would come to the temple and hurt the women. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. He felt that these women were probably fated to meet the Buddha. Otherwise, why would the true Buddha manifest when they came? The system told Tanguo the whole story and even praised her. Host, your big cutie is really a talent. She's very skilled at using public opinion to create hype. Look, she eliminated the bandits and protected you. She also made the incense here flourish and attracted the merchants. At the same time, she also gained a good reputation for the little emperor. Impressive, impressive. Peak. Chapter 3265. At this time, Shangguan Yungu also spoke in the group. Shangguan Yungu, martial uncle, Shangji is not bad. I think the test is almost over. He is not greedy for power. Are you going to take him as a disciple? To be honest, he was really surprised by what Mei Shangji had done. He had only eliminated one bandit and helped the little prince gain such a great reputation. That guy was good, he didn't leave his name at all. Until now, everyone still thought that it was the emperor who had sent the imperial guards to eliminate the bandits. This guy who didn't seek fame and benefits was really likable, but also somewhat helpless. Because of the existence of those bandits, the lives of the common people at the foot of Qingyuan Temple could be said to be miserable. In addition, the officials who were in charge here were not competent, so the common people's lives were even worse. There were really a lot of places like this. It couldn't be solved in a short time. The little emperor had sent officials from the imperial court to solve it several times, but they could only manage for a while and couldn't completely cure it. That day, he heard from Shangguan Qingchuan that he had sent people to secretly investigate those corrupt officials who preyed on the common people. The officials who were in charge of Qingyuan Temple had been investigated a few days ago. They had been escorted back to the capital and were basically beheaded. The newly appointed officials had also come. Although all the malignant tumors had been pulled out, it would still take time for the common people to recover their prosperous lives. But at this time, Mei Shangji did another thing. He sent people to spread rumors that Buddha had appeared in Qingyuan Temple. If one or two people said this, no one might believe it. But if a group of people who passed by here said there was, then many people would think there was. Sure enough, it didn't take long for many people to come to Qingyuan Temple to pray. These nobles came to worship Buddha and the journey was long, so it was impossible to always bring dry food. If there were cooked food, pancakes, and tea along the way, it would be the best. Even more, because this place was remote, there were only common people's houses at the foot of the mountain, there were no inns or restaurants. Some people who came from far away to worship Buddha might have to stay in the common people's houses. In this way, the common people who had received money would have a better life, wouldn't they? It was said that there were already some village bosses who had begun to renovate their houses and cook some delicacies to attract guests who came to worship Buddha. Shangguan Yungu, martial uncle, this Mei Shangji is very smart. He is indeed a talent. Shangguan Yungu kept talking about how good Mei Shangji was. Little did he know that the people in the group were extremely quiet, watching him praise Mei Shangji over and over again. Shangguan Yungu, I believe martial uncle has his own conclusions. System, hahaha, you really are a 10,000-year-old single dog. No wonder you're still single at such an old age. With Shangguan Yungu's current state, he felt that it would be very difficult for him to leave his single life. Campus Belle, well, I have other considerations about this matter. You don't have to worry. In fact, I also think highly of him. Everyone in the group, is she thinking about when she's going to marry that thick-skinned brat? He did not know what kind of expression Shangguan Yungu, this silly boy, would have when he knew the truth. Originally, they didn't intend to hide it from Shangguan Yungu. Later, they discovered that Shangguan Yungu's guess was wrong. They had a tacit understanding not to tell the truth. They were waiting for the other party to discover the truth. They were especially looking forward to that moment. Vertex. Chapter 3266. Hearing Tang Guo's words, Shangguan Yungu was relieved. Since Mei Shangji was interested in being an official and a great general, it would be good if he could get the immortal fate. After Mei Shangji quietly did something big, he didn't ask for credit or reward. Instead, he became the idle hedonist from before. After returning to the capital, he found that his little brothers were all gone. Qingchuan, you're really not a friend. I worked so hard to suppress the bandits, and when I came back, you actually saw that my little brothers were sent out? Do you not have any ministers to use? These dandy are all good enough. Shangguan Qingchuan was not angry at all, and hurriedly said happily, good enough, good enough. I think these upper-class dandy are much more useful than the ministers in the imperial court in my hands. As he spoke, he even showed some secret memorials to Mei Shangji. Shangji, the idea you gave me was really good. Imperial uncle was right, you really can't judge a person by their appearance. Although they are all dandy, they also have their own areas of expertise. With the help of these beloved ministers, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Shengguan Qingchuan said excitedly, recently, I personally supervised the execution of many corrupt officials. These damn things really think that the heavens are high and the emperor is far away. Right, Shangji, what reward do you want? What official position do you want? You can pick one. Mei Shangji jumped very far in an instant. I don't want to be an official. Suppressing the bandits was just a momentary distraction. Alright, I just wanted to make my father happy. Shengguan Qingchuan was somewhat disappointed. Sigh, I thought you had thought it through and was willing to help me. If you are willing to help me, the world will definitely get better and better. When the time comes, seeing the world at peace and the people living and working in peace and contentment, you will be gratified. I think not. You are the emperor, and a very smart and capable emperor. You alone can govern the world very well. This is something that will happen sooner or later. Mei Shangji said, even if I slack off for 3 days and dry the net for 2 days, I probably won't be able to get along with those people in the imperial court. If I really go to court and quarrel, I might make a move. Shengguan Qingchuan, our relationship is quite good in private, but on the surface, if I can't control and make a move, wouldn't that put you in a difficult position? For your sake, for my safety, let's do this. Shengguan Qingchuan did not force him, and instead talked about another matter. Shangji, that Miss Yun, do you think she is really Lu Junhua? Actually, I'm here to talk about this too. Dou Changye had bullied his little fairy. How could he let him off so easily? Oh, what did you find? I have a Shangji, but I can still feel it. It's so powerful that it's always trying to control my actions. I've never been able to figure out what's going on with her. Shengguan Qingchuan pondered for a moment. I always feel that royal uncle and that princess should know something. Madam. The one. Shangji's Shangji was Chuan. Qingchuan's for Saa. Mei Shangji was stunned. What did Holy King Duan call the princess's wife? Ha ha ha, no way. Peek. Chapter 3267. Saint King Duan, that old fellow, actually called his little fairy martial uncle. If that was the case, cough cough, in the future, wouldn't he be 1 generation higher than the other, and 2 generations higher than the little emperor in front of him? Ha 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 ha, when he and little fairy got together in the future, that old sage King Duan would have to call him granduncle for life. This was really good news. Martial uncle, I heard it with my own ears. I've always called her martial uncle, I've never heard of it before. Shengguan Qingchuan frowned, the princess's wife is not simple. Have you noticed that my royal uncle has become younger than before? He was injured countless times before, and his body should be similar to the general king's, but now he's much better. He suspected that his royal uncle had met an immortal and worshipped Lin Immortal as his master. The princess's wife could be the immortal's junior sister, who had descended to the mortal world to gain experience. If that was the case, it would explain why the imperial uncle addressed the princess's wife as martial aunt. I see. By the way, you haven't been out of the palace to see Miss Yun recently, have you? Shengguan Qingchuan shook his head. No, I've been dealing with a lot of affairs recently, so I haven't had time to see her. Moreover, I've treated her well, and I've done my duty. If it wasn't for the strange power in her that I haven't figured out, I would have left her alone. Shengguan Qingchuan didn't have any thoughts about Lu Junhua. Speaking of beautiful women, according to his understanding of his harem concubines, they were all talented and were all his. When he was free, he could talk to them and listen to music. Wasn't that good? Why should he accompany a woman who had nothing to do with him? His heart still ached for that house in the capital. He didn't know when that woman would be able to leave that place. He had taken the initiative to let her move in, and even said that she could stay as long as she wanted. Nothing had happened, so it would be embarrassing to take back what he had said. "What's the matter? Did you notice anything strange?" Mei Shengji whispered, "Do you know Do Changye?" "Yes, the prince of the Marquis's mansion, the one who is called infatuated." "Yes, that's him. Recently, my people found that he often sneaked into that house in the middle of the night to meet Miss Yun. The two of them didn't do anything strange. They just sat in the courtyard and chatted for the whole night." Shengguan Qingchuan felt strange. Didn't he fiercely chop down the door and snatch people before? How can he talk about this? Like you said, she might be Lu Junhua. Maybe she still wants to get close to Do Changye subconsciously. Mei Shengji said faintly, "It's such a pity that the wife of the crown prince was sent to a dilapidated temple by Do Changye. He used the same excuse to send the concubines there too. This time, he most likely won't have the chance to come back. Do Changye is really hateful." Shengguan Qingchuan frowned. "I'm afraid he's making room for Miss Yun." "Most likely. Shangji, think of a way to teach Do Changye a lesson. The wife of the crown prince is my uncle's martial aunt. She's definitely not a simple person." Mei Shengji smiled. "Since we've played together since we were young, I'll help you out." The two of them muttered to each other for a long time. Finally, Mei Shengji left the palace. In the middle of the night, Do Changye sneaked to the back of Lu Junhua's house, just like before. Vertex. Chapter 3268. There was a tree outside the wall and he would climb up the tree and wait for Lu Junhua to come out. Tonight, just like before, he leaped onto the tree trunk and sat in the middle of it. However, as soon as he sat down, he felt that something was amiss. He seemed to have sat on something sharp. At first, he thought that it was just wood shavings, but after a while, his body began to turn numb and he could no longer move. It was late at night and he couldn't even scream or move his body. He couldn't even use his internal energy. It was indeed a little uncomfortable on such a cold night. Most importantly, Lu Junhua had already come out and was quietly sitting against the wall. Due to the fact that the tree was too tall, she only took a glance and realized that there was a figure chatting with Do Changye. Do Changye was chatting with Lu Junhua, forgetting that he was not wearing thick clothes and couldn't use his internal energy. He couldn't even move. "Junhua, have you remembered?" "I vaguely remember some of it, but I can't remember most of it." Do Changye was overjoyed. "Come back to the mansion with me then. You're the only one who can stand by my side. You're the one I like. What about your wife now?" Lu Junhua did feel that she might really be Lu Junhua, but she couldn't agree to it so easily before she remembered everything. After all, she didn't know what had happened between her and Do Changye. Hence, she directly asked about Do Changye's wife. Everyone in Capital City knew that Do Changye disliked other women, so she didn't mind the existence of his wife. She heard that she had even gone to Qingguang Temple to cultivate and she didn't know when she would be back. "As long as you're willing to be with me, you'll be my only wife. Junhua, you don't have to worry about anything else. I'll get rid of those eyesores for you. I've never had any other woman apart from you." Do Changye had forgotten about the existence of the two concubines who had gotten pregnant after scheming against him. "Junhua, as long as you're willing, I'll get rid of anyone who tries to stop us," he said, including the owner of the mansion, the current emperor. Do Changye had already realized why the emperor wanted to raise her there. He indeed couldn't go against the emperor with his small mansion. If the emperor was no longer the emperor but a dethroned emperor, would the other party be able to stop him and Junhua? They chatted until daybreak, and Do Changye's body stiffened. Lu Junhua was far away from Do Changye, so she did not notice him at all. In the end, she bade farewell to Do Changye and went into the house to rest. Do Changye's body was still numb and he couldn't move at all. Do Changye could only move slightly after daybreak. However, he lost his balance and fell onto the ground. Someone happened to pass by and recognized Do Changye's face. He immediately gave him a look of disdain and left quickly. This group of people were famous scholars in the capital. They had gone out early in the morning to tour the lake. The lake was frozen, and to them, it was a unique scenery. Within half a day, the news of Do Changye hiding on a tree behind a mansion and peeking at the women in the backyard spread like wildfire. Do Changye had been warming himself up in the house. Upon hearing the news, he was indeed infuriated. But now, he had something more important to do. He had already realized that if it was just a small heir of the Marquis's household, not only would the old madam stop him, the Lu family would also stop Lu Junhua, and there would also be the emperor who would interfere. Vertex. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.